Welcome to the Spherity podcast season, Product Passport Pioneers. My name is Susanne Guth-Orlowski, and I'm Chief Innovation and Solutions Officer of Spherity. Today, we're speaking to Nancy Norris. She is Senior Director, ESG and Digital Trust, British Columbia Ministry of Energy, Mines, and Low Carbon Innovation. Welcome, Nancy.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Nancy, you will make this a very special episode, as what you do is really a lighthouse project in the area of trusted ESG data exchange. And to draw the bow to the digital product passport, a digital product passport must be populated with trusted ESG data. And a lot of listeners always ask me, where actually the trusted data comes from in the digital product passport. And now, as a little sneak preview, this is exactly what we will explain to our listeners today. And I'm really looking forward to this episode. But before we go into details here, Nancy, tell us a little bit about yourself, about your background, where you're coming from, and how you ended up working with the ESG credentials.
Sure. So my background is a little bit diverse, I guess. I have a master's of public policy, and my focus was on electricity policy. So I started out working for an agency associated with the government of British Columbia. It's called a Crown Corporation. So it's a wholly owned agency by the British Columbia government, and it's called BC Hydro, and it operates all of the electricity grid within the province. So that was how I sort of started out in government work and policy work. About 5 years ago, I started working for the electricity policy group, actually within government, so within the Ministry of Energy, Mines, and Low Carbon Innovation. And from there, I started working in a strategic group, a corporate shop. And we would have various projects that would come our way and that would touch on all of the different operations of the ministry. Mm-hmm. So the ministry looks after and oversees the energy sector, the mining sector, the electricity sector, and the alternative energy sector within our province. So the project that came to my direction and I just became completely obsessed with is called the Energy and Mines Digital Trust. And that project is really looking at the intersection between emerging digital technology and ESG performance, sustainability performance of industry. Mm-hmm. In particular, the energy industry and the mining industry within British Columbia. The British Columbia government has been pioneering in contributing to the open source community in terms of digital trust and identity technology. Mm-hmm. And that has been happening through our Office of the Chief Information Officer and the Ministry of Citizen Services. So for my ministry, decided and wanted to get involved in a pilot where we were using that technology, but applying it to the energy sector and the mining sector to try and allow organizations to prove out in a verified manner how their products are produced and where they come from.
Mm-hmm. And then maybe also let the listener understand that the British Columbia government is actually in touch with the mining industry, obviously. And you, as British Columbia government, you also give out operating licenses, for example, to mines. So there's a process there already today that could be used for this use case here. Maybe tell us a little bit about what the British Columbia government actually does with the mines, what they do today, what processes there are to make them to allow them to operate.
Sure. Yeah. So we all the mines that operate in BC are regulated by the Mines Act. So it's a piece of legislation, and my ministry is in charge of issuing permits for all different mining activities. So from early exploration to development, production, reclamation, closure, and post-closure of mines. And so when we were thinking about this this digital project and allowing or trying to find ways that we could embed data, verified data in using digital trust technology, we wanted to focus on processes that already existed because the governance around them is already in place.
Yeah.
And because there's already trust in the government and in the regulatory process, we wanted to apply the use of verified credentials to that process to allow for government to be either an issuer of a credential to a mining company, or depending on the regulatory process, a consumer of a verified credential or a verifier of that credential.
Yeah. Okay, so that means that there was already a process where you give out operating licenses to mines, and that process was basically digitized by using decentralized identities for the mine, but also for you as a British Columbia government, as an issuer, where this process has been digitized. This mining license was kind of created or digitized as a verifiable credential and then issued to the mine, and then so that everyone could actually go and look at it. This operating license, what does it include? Does it also already look after some kind of ESG criteria or environmental safety, health kind of requirements that a mine needs to adhere to get that operating license?
So the operating license itself, and like this is a very interesting, as a government, this is an interesting question, which is because ESG is that all of the ESG frameworks are focused on companies, publicly traded companies, and they measure at the corporate level behavior. So as a government, we're curious and interested in how our regulations and our legislation lines up against some of these ESG frameworks. In terms of, and then one level deeper, I guess, is as an industry. So as the mining industry in BC, how do BC regulations compare with ESG frameworks? So what we attempted to do, what we've been researching and looking into, because ESG is not necessarily sectoral specific, industry specific, we've actually been looking at performance certification, so industry performance certification. And one of our use cases is around the Towards Sustainable Mining Protocol, which is a international best practices certification for mines.
Yeah.
And doing a bit of comparison as to how our laws line up against that protocol.
Yeah.
And to get a sense of, just by operating in BC, what sort of standards are you being held to? So we have, in terms of health and safety, there's a health and safety reclamation code for mines in BC. We also have a tailings management that is included in the Health and Safety Reclamation Code. More generally, there's a Water Sustainability Act. We have an Environmental Assessment Act. And then also any large emitters over a certain threshold of GHG emissions annually must report to the BC government. So I wouldn't say that there's any one particular piece of legislation or regulation that governs all of these different ESG factors, but we are actively trying to identify which pieces of legislation sort of regulate behavior and how that relates to various ESG factors.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe some of those requirements from different standards are already included in an operating license, you say, but you're also working towards the sustainable mining standard. And then also in the project that we did together, there was another party there. There was someone who was issuing actually ESG credentials to the mine. Maybe tell us a little bit about that area as well of the Energy and Mines Digital Trust ecosystem that you build up there.
Sure. Yeah. So what we want is to be able to have BC government being able to issue credentials to the mine based on our regulation. We also want to enable mining companies to build out, to have this entire ecosystem of information that's available to them via digital credential. So we partnered up with the Mining Association of Canada. They are the ones who created the Towards Sustainable Mining Protocol. And we've been working with them on a digital credential version of the TSM protocol. And that protocol covers off a bunch of different ESG factors around health and safety, tailings management, water stewardship, climate change. And so, and they also have a very robust governance for this protocol, where they have certain environmental auditing companies around the world that are certified and trained to issue these TSM protocol scores to mines. So what we've done is we've set up the auditing company with a digital wallet. We've set up the mine with a digital wallet, and then the Mining Association of Canada. And so that is mapping that exchange, which happens in the non-digital world today, of an auditing company reviewing the performance of the mine, issuing them a certain score on their TSM protocol, and then the mining company sharing that information with the Mining Association of Canada. And so again, that's another credential that can be held within the wallet of the mine when they are wanting to prove out to potential purchasers, potential investors, marketplaces like the London Metals Exchange, what their performance is like on some of these factors, and do it in a way that is with audited, verified data that can't be tampered with once it's inputted into the system.
Yeah, and I think this is really, really important. And this is actually how the data comes into a product passport also for batteries, because in the end, if you have a battery and a product passport, you have to prove, that the material that you use, the raw material, is kind of complying to different ESG criteria. Then you can do it in that exact way that you just described. There are different issuers, the British Columbia government. We also had PricewaterhouseCoopers there with the greenhouse gas emissions report, which was also given to the mine as a company. Then we have the TSM credential, the Towards Sustainable Mining credential. And with this credentials, the mine can actually not only fill the product passport maybe of a battery, but also of a lot of other products, that are being made out of the material that they produce, and gives the mine actually a very nice way to declare compliance in a lot of different directions.
That's right.
And I think that's just what everyone needs to understand, and what I think is so beautiful about your project, because you're really a front runner also from a government side to push this way of data exchange forward. The digital product passport also mandates a decentralized approach, so where the data and credentials and product information stays with the manufacturer, stays with the supply chain actor. Why did you choose this decentralized approach? How did it start, Nancy, at the BC Gov?
Well, it started, I would say, for individual identity. So there's multiple different use cases, and actually one in production around issuing lawyer credentials to lawyers, and so that they're able to access court materials. So the decentralized approach is very important for individual identity, and for organizational identity, particularly for sustainability information. It is also important in that it can create a business efficiency for the mine. They're being asked more and more to prove out their performance against multiple different ESG frameworks and sustainability best practice certifications, on and on it goes. And the larger companies within the province have teams of folks who work on this and are very highly skilled and understand all of these different frameworks and whatnot. For the smaller operators, it can be very overwhelming. So that's where we, as a government, thought that there was, a opportunity to enable all operators to be able to have easily and quickly share information about their performance. And that's what we keep hearing back from the people that we work with, the stakeholders we work with, is that for businesses is the real value add. I think where this can really become even more powerful is in supply chain tracing. Because the decentralized approach, using a blockchain where the information exchange is private between, and encrypted, so that there's this encrypted channel between the issuer and the holder of the information, and then who they choose to share it with. And then there's also there's this transparency because the transaction is recorded in the ledger. So I think that for supply chain tracing, it's really it can be even like the decentralized nature of it is going to be extremely powerful.
Yeah,
going forward.
So you're basically having good experiences with using this technology. And the feedback is actually good for the companies that you work with, that it's actually easing their lives. How important is open source technology in this area?
Well, I will just make a caveat there is that this right now the technology is it's a pilot stage still. So we haven't, our next stage of work is to go to production.
Of course.
And I think that's when it will really result in true efficiencies. At the moment, to be quite honest, it's actually a duplicative effort at the moment because it's a pilot, right? So there's still, none of this is actually replacing existing regulatory processes or TSM yet. But we've tested it, it works, and there's we see a lot of opportunity, and so do the folks that we are working with for it to create efficiencies going forward.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. I guess that's an important point.
I get ahead of myself. I can see the benefits of it so clearly. But it's, we have to make sure that people are aware that we are still in pilot stage.
Of course, no, that's fine. And now coming back to the open source nature of it, it's based all on open source technology. Spherity is working with a lot of standards in that area. How important is the open source part of the technology approach?
To me, it's crucial. I think it's really important that it's open source because that encourages interoperability. It encourages knowledge sharing. I think a big part of what governments can do to make sure that the full benefits of this type of technology are realized is to encourage open source, to contribute to open source technologies, and to really focus on interoperability. Something that has been so great about working with your company and other like-minded companies is that you're also interested in interoperability, and there's no one solution is going to be the one that sort of rules them all. It's going to be a network of interconnected solutions, and having that choice for consumers, I think, is going to be really important. So we're very much committed to having the solution for the BC government and for us to be able to issue and hold and verify credentials, have that be an open source technology that we continue to contribute to. And then also working with companies like Spherity and others who are like-minded and wanting to ensure that there's no particular market capture by one vendor, that it's that there's opportunities for all sorts of different providers to be part of the equation.
Yeah, so I think that's also even today in another professional discussion, I repeated again that, you know, even if we had a great solution as Spherity to digitize claim certification and so forth, we couldn't serve the entire world and all different supply chains in all different product segments across the world with just one technology approach. This simply doesn't work. So we are strong believing in working with partners, making our solution interoperable, and then, you know, making it a network of different providers that can then serve, you know, different value chains, different product categories worldwide. But we have to agree on the standards, and I think this is happening in a lot of areas. You had the good approach that you were using data that was kind of having a standard that already had a semantics with it. Also the greenhouse gas report and the towards sustainable mining data fields are kind of known and understood. There are other areas where those semantics still have to develop to describe everything around kind of a product, a battery, or you know, or something else. If a company wants to participate at the Energy and Mines Digital Trust ecosystem and hears this podcast and said, I want to work with that, what kind of investment does this company need to make to participate at that ecosystem?
So are you thinking we work with multiple different types of companies. So if there's a vendor who's interested, has a product passport or a digital trust solution, absolutely interested in working with them to test interoperability and potentially be part of the pilots going forward, or even working with other being the solution that's adopted by various mines and verifiers and receivers of the data. So please reach out. We want to expand as much as possible. For mining companies?
For mining companies. What is a mining company that hears this, maybe not even in British Columbia, but maybe somewhere else? If they want to use the same thing, what do they need to invest? What do they need to participate at the Energy and Mines Digital Trust ecosystem?
What they would need is an organizational wallet. So that's like a digital wallet that can hold credentials. They would need to have either, there's the code is out there if they have a technology team that wants to stand up a wallet, or there's also companies such as your own and a few others that we've been working with and obviously hoping to expand that, who offer it as a service and are able to have an interface where the company can log in and receive their credentials. And honestly, it's such a new, we were wanting to move to production. That's our sort of next step. So understanding exactly what the value is for the company and what that kind of service, what the charge would be for that kind of service. That's a part of our next steps, is understanding that more. I think that in terms of if a mining company is interested in being part of it, another part of our next steps is moving to try and do a use case that's pan-Canadian. So working with other provinces and their mining associations and mines in their territory to see whether or not they would like to join the ecosystem and be able to exchange information in this way. The other group that we're very interested in reaching out to and expanding is the verifier of the information. So that really drives a lot of these use cases. Like, who wants this data? How is it going to make a difference to the mine if they're able to share it with a potential investor, with a bank, with a marketplace such as the London Metals Exchange? So again, that's another what we want to build out based on the pilot is reaching out to potential end consumers and verifiers of the data and getting them to be part of the ecosystem as well.
That makes a lot of sense. So we hope that a lot of companies in Canada are listening and are signing up to your Energy and Mines digital ecosystem, or, you know, getting in touch to try it out and to become part of the thing. And I could imagine that there are a lot of mining companies in Canada generally that want to sell their material, their mines, their mining products to the European market. So I guess they're also interested in sharing that information in a standardized way so that they can put their product on the market. What's your opinion here? Do you hear that from your mining companies that you work with?
Well, so interestingly, for BC, most of our exports either go to the US or to Asia.
Oh,
yeah. However, we closely follow what's the sustainability definitions that are happening within the EU, because we really do feel that the EU is leading in terms of defining what a sustainable product is, and also leading in terms of government involvement in decentralized identity.
And yeah, and so even if it's not maybe directly placed on the European market, I mean, the system can be used kind of worldwide, kind of the same concept can be used with other mines that then maybe put their products on the European market, but also for the US. I mean, we have this Inflation Reduction Act. I don't know if Canada is still part of it, because I know that a lot of the materials, especially for electronic vehicles, batteries, they have to come from the US market. I don't know if Canada is still also enclosed in it to get funding, to get the subvention for those products. So I guess it's also relevant to show compliance to the US market in a similar way. Do you get requests from the US market for, you know, exchanging this verifiable data for mining?
So yeah, honestly, we're not quite there yet. This is more around like supply chain tracing, which is another direction that we want to go in, and also reaching out to purchasers in the US who are and Asia as well, who are interested in the sustainable practices of the mines that they work with. I think that, you know, what our thinking is that as the sustainably produced products become more and more in demand, you know, positioning ourselves to be able to provide information, or positioning our minds to be able to provide that information it's a good or it's a smart thing to do.
Yeah, so basically differentiating yourselves maybe from other mining areas, and that you can easily show, you know, that you adhere to ESG requirements is something obviously that allows your mines to sell internationally their products. So that's understandable, of course. With the approach that you've done with Energy and Mines Digital Trust, what hurdles do you see? Where are difficulties coming up when trying to implement this ecosystem?
Well, I would say it's probably back to something else that we were discussing, which is where is the value today? This is still emerging technology. So and we're still in the pilot stage. I think that once we've gone to production, we will have more statistics around the actual efficiencies. I think when we get to a point where we can say, a mine in British Columbia or a mine in Canada was actually able to exchange this information in a way that got them a preferential contract, or they were able to reduce the amount of time that their staff had to spend on sustainability reporting by X amount. So we're not there yet. We're not there yet because we're still like, our next step will be going into production, having that kind of data. But with this project and with this technology, because it's emerging, you have to have leadership that's willing to take a leap, really, and look forward to say, yes, this is an emerging market. This is an emerging way of exchanging information. We see other governments in other areas of the world are pushing towards this. So even though British Columbia doesn't necessarily export directly raw material mining products to Europe, we see United States and Europe as leading the way in terms of how sustainable products will be defined globally. So it's really making sure that people can see the big picture, and that this is a project that, even though today, as I was saying, we haven't replaced a regulatory process, we haven't gone to production yet. So being, I think, truthful about the value today, and then also being able to predict and look to the value that's going to be there 5 to 10 years from now, and positioning ourselves to be able to capture that.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think that as Canada or British Columbia government, having kind of those insights about the material that you produce, but you said you use in your own products, does that help you to give you transparency about raw materials, maybe also about your own resilience with regards to raw materials?
I think so. I mean, I think that the world is moving towards sustainable products, and being able to prove out, not just have sort of self-reported corporate reports about how sustainable their products are, but actually using, in this case, advanced digital technology to assist with that, with proving that out. And I think that that's the direction that global markets are going in. And I do think that jurisdictions and operators that are able to prove that information, prove out their performance in a way that's verified and has a high degree of trust, that they will be in, they have a long-term future in the market.
Yeah, that was actually already a good statement about what you're doing. We're coming to an end, Nancy. I think we nicely closed the loop. Yeah, how this verifiable information is created, that we in Europe need for our product passports, not only for batteries but for a lot of other things. And again, thank you for your engagement, for the Lighthouse projects that you do as British Columbia government. And I'm looking forward to maybe accompany you and the team for the next years, and to be successful to provide this information in production. So thank you very much, Nancy, for this interview. I'm looking forward to speaking to you again.
My pleasure. Thank you.